turn this here. Good morning, everybody. I want to say hello to everybody. Thanks for having me. I tell you, about a half a year ago, I spoke to this gentleman, and I thought that my talk wasn't a talk, and I was actually speaking with a group of people. And then I was called a few months ago, and they were, "Are you ready for your talk?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, I thought I was just going to have a group discussion." Because normally I prefer to talk about exploration and equipment and logistics and stuff. So I needed to get a wealth of information, and I reached out to some people who I have a lot of respect for, some of my mentors and stuff like that. Does anybody recognize the character there? Who that might be? Houdini. All right. Any Houdini fans out there? But they asked me, after speaking on the phone, to talk about the degradation of training. It's a word usually used for structural deterioration, but it seemed to fit real good. And as I began to develop this presentation, I realized that it was impossible to talk about the degradation of training without addressing the industry as a whole, where we started, where we are, where we're going, and what's going to be happening here and stuff. So I better get going. Forrest has already told me I need to stay on track, so we'll get going here. I don't need my glasses. That's good. I look old with these things on. Degradation of training. Commercialization. It's not a bad word, but generally there was a time when we thought of commercialization, we thought of open water diving, and we were terribly concerned about people standing on the reef. Don't stand on the reef. Don't touch the coral. We want to keep this environment pristine so we can continue to do what? Make money, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with making money. Good, honest people aspire to make money every day. And the most incredible thing in the world is when you can actually make money doing something you enjoy. It's not a sin to make money doing something you enjoy. But when we think of commercialization and diving, we obviously, we think about that. So I went on the internet, and I actually put in, if you look real carefully, I put in cave diver in trouble. And you look at the pictures here. Any of these pictures look like a cave diver in trouble? No, they don't look like a cave diver in trouble. You've got people on scooters, obviously you've got Wes's picture here, all these wonderful pictures. So if I was a dive student and I was aspiring to become a cave diver, it's very difficult. Unless you literally put cave death, cave fatality, and then what you'll end up seeing is a lot of paperwork and a lot of witness, stories and things and reading. And obviously, most of us, regardless of whether or not you want to admit it, you don't want to read something, you want to see pictures. And there are no pictures. There's people like Ed and myself and people who've been involved in those things. And you don't think about that until you go home, and if you shed a tear, and I have, you think about yourself and you think about your family. It's difficult to cry for the families, because I think when you do get upset, you're thinking about yourself and the people you know. But anyway, so cave diver in trouble, commercialization. Does anybody disagree that cave diving is commercialized? Nobody disagrees. Years ago, many years ago, over 15 years ago, we talked about, recreational cave diving. Anybody remember those arguments back in the day, Forrest? Well, there's no such thing as recreational cave diving, And I agree, the moment you go around a corner you've never been before, you could say the moment you get off the gold line, you suddenly become an explorer. Somebody may have been there before you, but the reality is you're experiencing something in an environment you've never been in before. All cave divers should be prepared to be explorers, regardless if they're not laying the line. And Sheck Exley believed that, and a lot of cave divers believe that. Here's originally I got rid of Patty, but just so you know, this is Patty. Whoop, go back. Laser pointer. So you see Patty's progression. Obviously, the ultimate thing you can end up with is what? Master scuba diver. And then somewhere in here, look, cavern diver, tech side mount. This the tools and the training that are necessary to get in these places are being offered. Now, there's PADI, here's NAUI, same thing. You look at NAUI, technical courses, you come down here, cavern, cave diver. At least NAUI had enough, I gotta say a nice word, but at least NAUI was strong enough to actually call it what it is, cavern and cave diver. PADI still refuses to put cave diver on there. They just call it cavern diving or cavern diver. So anyways, commercialization of cave diving, it's here, it's come. This is not something that was available back when the NACD was formed and shortly after when the CDS was formed. This wasn't available. Things have changed. It's time, as an industry, we view it as such. These organizations aren't going to go away. Does anybody believe that NAUI or PADI is going to be disappearing anytime in the near future? Does anybody believe that they're not going to be training more and more overhead/environment cave divers? It's not going to happen. It's just going to continue. So the question is degradation of training. I'm slowly realizing as I'm putting this presentation together, there's no way to make accountability. There's just no way. It's normally, you would think you could, but there's no way. To say it's out of control, I don't think so, but it was a sad outlook for me, because I'll be honest, I'm a very neutral person. As long as I'm finding something new and documenting it, I'm happy. The industry as a whole has gone so far now, there's no chance for them to implement individual instructor accountability, because it was never part of the original business plan. You just can't implement it afterwards. Instructors tend to get pretty pissed off when you do that. The CDS is not PADI, NAUI, or TDI, et cetera, et cetera. Don't be too hasty to cast judgment about the industry, not emphasizing conservation, although they do mention it in their courses. They don't understand one thing. We talked about protecting reefs. I mean, there's a lot more reef than there is diveable caves, wouldn't you agree? The reality is cave diving should be explained this way. Non-commercialized explanation of cave diving. Here we go. Anybody recognize this guy? No horror fans. Texas A&M people, you're younger. You recognize this? Oh, they woke up. Hey guys, no, just joking. Let's play a game. We have to read these things. Anybody familiar with the saw thing? I wasn't until my teenagers made me watch it, and I fell asleep a few times. This is how cave diving should be explained. I'm sure Ed will agree with this if he even knows this. I'll put you 1,000 feet back in an underwater maze with only one way out. Did I mention you'll be immersed in a liquid? It's good not to, water just seems so pacifying and serene, doesn't it? People think of water, and they're like, oh, water. I'm going to put you 1,000 feet back in an underground maze. Did I mention you're going to be immersed in liquid? You'll have a breathing apparatus, but it has a limited air supply. I'll place multiple obstacles and fault passages between you and the way out, designed to confuse and kill you. I'll give you a friend who may help you, but they may unknowingly try to kill you. Let the game begin. Let's go back to this. Sorry. Happy, happy blue water. Everything's great. And that's okay if you want to commercialize what we do, but everyone who's been cave diving long enough knows that that's just not the case. Anyways, train the brain first the body. And this is one of the primary reasons. The brain is divided into three primary areas. The neocortex is the brain's analytical computer, which processes data. New skills, computers, dry suits, and new skills is the really important one. The limbic system is where all the emotions reside. All the emotions, happy, sadness. The brain stem and other brain structures are responsible for your survival. These are the old parts of the brain that we used to use when we were trying to make fire. This part of the brain is described by psychiatrists as the old brain or the lizard brain. The old brain quickly assesses the situation to determine if you're at risk or in danger. If it senses your well-being is in jeopardy, it forces, that's important to recognize, it forces you to react and move away from any potential threat. And your old brain decides what gets noticed, what gets your attention. So as an instructor, what happens with the degradation of training is I'm going to show you how to fin kick, I'm going to show you how to run a reel, I'm going to teach you how to use your new shearwater computer, I'm going to show you how to use your dry suit, but ultimately, How long do you think it will take to convince the old brain to use a technique instead of freaking out? 20 years, like that guy Ed was talking about. Some people never get it. Some people never get it. It's like holding a flame under your hand and saying, okay, don't move your hand. I know it hurts. Don't move your hand. You've got to hold it there. You're going to get burnt. So as a student leaves an instructor, the instructor is vying, I use that word a lot, that the student is going to retain that, and the student is going to implement that, and at some time, because of muscle memory and repetitive training, something bad is going to happen, and instead of you going, wah, you're going to do what you're supposed to do. Scuba diving is not an elitist sport. You haven't got to be ripped or look like Ed Sorensen to be a good cave diver. I've seen great cave divers who, have really, it's a mental prowess. We all know that and stuff. But the question is instructors, when you leave an instructor, do they call you 2 weeks later and go, hey, been practicing your fin kick because it kind of sucked when I trained you? You've been working with the reel because you were really awful. You remember you kept dropping it and you couldn't do this, and oh, your buoyancy, have you been working on that? No, they won't. Once they train you, they won't do that. I mean, I know some students that keep calling their instructors going, hey, what's going on? And the instructor's like, yeah, why are you calling me? I got your money, I gave you your card, please leave me alone. But that's a problem. So what's the, therefore you need to appeal to the old brain. Yes, I got that. Lizard brain. This is your lizard brain, everybody. It's hard to get Ed to pose for that shot, but we managed. Okay, this is the survival part of the brain. It's pretty ominous and threatening and can kill just about anything. Here's the analytical part of your brain. Here's that part of the brain. There's that part of the brain. Who's going to win? Anybody questions? Unless he's got a really good phaser from Star Trek or something. Time, muscle memory are the only way to convince the old brain that new skills will solve any potential problem. I put Eagle's Nest in Wayne's World down there. 2 recoveries where divers had certainly less than 100 dives and had multiple scooters, dry suits, lights, trimix. They had been failed by some instructors, passed by others, but here they were with less than 50 cave dives in one of the deepest caves in the United States. Anybody, you don't even have to, it doesn't really matter where they were or how they died. The question is what in the hell were they doing there? In Wayne's World too, Burt Wiltshire is a fantastic instructor. This is a situation where instruction had nothing to do with it. There was an intro to cave, and a student was he had been to Iraq multiple times. He was a nitrox instructor, an open water instructor. Bert had finished his intro, and he'd done great instruction with this guy, but somehow this guy had this. He had too much of this, and not the part that was trying to kill him. He was like, hey, I've been to Iraq twice. I've done this, and he made a bad decision. He made it, besides putting himself in that cave system, he brought a person who had 1 day of cavern training. He was pretty convinced that he had things under control. And you may have been reading about that, so I can't go into it too terribly much into the details. Unfortunately, I'm kind of about what is needed to solve the problem. You see this word a lot. It's a word that the CDS and the NACD have used a long time, and I'll tell you, fundamentally, you look at mentoring, and sometimes you feel belittled when you're a student, but it's not. It's friendship. It's a kindred spirit. But the most important thing about mentoring is you don't want a person who's been just recently cave instructed going with a mentor into a very advanced cave. Mentoring has to occur at the level that the student has competency at. You don't want mentors going, hey, you just got cave certified? Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to sneak into Sally Ward with you. I'm going to take you all the way to the back. No, I'm your mentor. No, mentoring means recognizing where that student is in their development and leading them through that progression. I had good mentors when I was younger. At Steve Strasma, there were several of them, and It really worked. I mean, I was swimming 3,000 and 4,000 feet in staging before I bought my first cherry bomb. And before, I mean, but back then it was slow because technology wasn't like it is now, you know, and it wasn't available. I mean, you can go buy a scooter, you can go get a dry suit. No one's going to go, hey, you're not using this for cave diving. All they want to see is this. They want the money and stuff. So, mentoring, once again. If you're a new student, don't look at it like that. I wish there was a different word. You know, psychologically, sometimes it's the word that will put us back. I don't need to be a mentor. I can do it on my own. And as a mentor, like I said, make sure you're doing something. Here's a good example. Continued development and training allows for wise decision making. I just learned how to mountain climb. Let's go to number 7. It's pretty visual there. You can see when you're training on mountain climbing, you're never going to do it. You're never going to do it. You're going to go, hey, let's go to Mount Rainier. Let's go somewhere else, because it's there and you can see it. And the problem with caves are, I always tell people when I talk about these things, caves are like apples and avocados. They're shaped the same, but they're entirely different. Everybody knows, if you've ever been anywhere in a cave, everything's beautiful, everything's wonderful. You make one wrong turn and you're absolutely in the bowels of hell. You know, in all the different types of caves. They're just so radically different environments. So Andrew Pitkin and I came up yesterday. We were checking on the visibility in Harvey's. The next day we went to Indian. And obviously you can find places in Indian that may look like Harvey's, but they're two entirely different systems. Harvey's is an incredible cave when the conditions are good, but it's also a cave that is very shallow, it's very big, the gold line's great. But if you swim 400 feet in the wrong direction, you're hovering over a pit that goes to 240-something feet with a siphon at the bottom. So there's potential for great danger in these systems, and as a new cave diver, you just have to be aware of that. And mentors, I was at the new diving shop. Thank you, I apologize. And there were a group of people who were going into Harvey's. They have the certification to do so. I think that's great, and we'll be talking about that later. You know, and I wasn't a biggin. I didn't go up and go, hey, you going into Harvey's, huh? Let me tell you what. I put some line in there one time. You better be careful. No. I said, listen, there's 20 foot of visibility. There's stratified lenses. But there's gold line. I said, you got to know. I said, if you get off the line and go up to the ceiling to see the good visibility, you're not going to be able to see the line. I said, and there's a real deep pit on one side. I said, so be real careful. I said, have a great dive. I didn't tell them not to go. But, you know, I gave them the logistics they needed to prepare for that dive. So I'm excited to see that a lot of these sites are opening up and stuff. We'll talk about that in a second. But I think it's important that if we can't quantify people's instruction, but we can certainly prepare them like this. Think of this as preparation. There's a way to talk to people without belittling them and saying, here you go, as long as you stay on the gold line at this cave, you're okay. Oh, you want to go here? I can't stop you, but let me tell you some things. And the chances are they'll go, oh yeah, well maybe I'll go here instead. You know, and there'll be some progression, they'll learn something. So anyways, moving on. All right, examples of poor training, CCR, Clay, Little River. Here's a good example. I can't tell you the people who told me these stories. Gentleman's diving in Little River. He gets down past a serpentine tunnel, just horrible visibility, but enough that he can see 2 distinct marks in the clay about 1 to 2 inches deep. And he's swimming pretty fast, and finally he catches up with the culprit. And there's a guy on a CCR who's wearing his pressure gauges straight down. And in the swimming, and he's, by the way, training his student to be an instructor who's swimming in front of him. And as the gentleman kind of passes him, because they're kind of way down with tremendous gear, he notices the student is doing what? Has the exact same configuration. Now this is an instructor, full cave, CCR instructor training a student. When I was trained originally by Steve Gerard, he drilled me. He goes, no, we got to get rid of that. No, you got to get that up. No, you got to get that up. Remember the old picture of Sheck and Jackson Blue with the pressure gauges like that? And how everybody embraces that. They see that, they see a guy like Sheck, and the next thing you know, everyone's selling those pressure gauges and stuff. You got to be smart, you know? So, wow, talk about degradation of training when it comes to equipment configuration. Every cave's different. If you've got a configuration that's going like that, you've got to configure must equal site environment. Running primary reel. I've talked to 2 separate instructors, 2 different students, where They're full cave, people are in full cave, and they have very, very poor cavern reel skills, having a hard time doing primary and secondary tie-offs. One instructor who's actually in this room went to the student, he says, hey, he says, didn't you just finish your full cave? By the way, a prominent instructor. And she said, I was told that because most caves have line within the daylight zone, that our skill needed to run a primary reel wasn't too important. Really? But there's commercialization for you. Instructors must be trained before adequate time/dive. So, Germany, here's a good one. The guys in Puerto Rico, and I can't say too much, they're very elitist cave diving association down there. There's another training agency. And this girl went down from Europe. They did her cave intro, and she said, now I want to be an instructor. And the guy down in Puerto Rico said, he says, that's going to take you about 3 years. That may seem crazy to some people. And she says, no, you don't understand. This summer, I want to be an instructor in the Yucatan. He goes, that ain't happening. He says, you need a long progressive training to become an instructor. So she got back on a plane, went to Europe, went to Germany, and 2 weeks later was a full cave instructor with less than 30 cave dives. Then flew back to the Yucatan, and I believe tried to get a job at Dos Ojos and some other places. I'm not sure what the status, but that's also a true story. That's commercialization at its finest from a European agency that I can't say. Student 3 years, another good one. This is a true story. Student says, hey, I haven't been in the water in 3 years, but my friends are planning a cave diving trip to the Yucatan. I need my cave instruction. Instructor's like, yeah, come on down, we'll brush you up on your skills, and we'll get you cave trained. And it's like, I haven't been cave diving long enough, even though it's been, this year will be my 24th year as a full cave diver, to know back when training was something that you received because you wanted to explore underwater caves, because you were a member of the NSS and a dry caver, and you wanted to cross that threshold into wet caves. It wasn't about commercialization back then. It was certainly about compensating your instructor and making sure that was done. But it was an exchange of skills to prepare you as a dry caver to explore underwater caves. I was a dry caver for many years. I came down here, did some things, and I fortunately was trained right at the threshold where it was becoming very commercialized. Next, nothing wrong with the standards. Everyone says, well, the standards, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing wrong with the standards. Most of the standards are copied. The standards are not flawed. Why do people become instructors? Question mark. Love of teaching, ego, money. Anybody just want to open their mouth randomly? Nobody? Come on. Ed, where are you? No, just joking. No, there was a time when the love of teaching was a big deal. You have to know fundamentally when the NACD started that there just wasn't people beating down the door for instruction. So it was what? It was the love of teaching. Wouldn't everybody agree? Back at that time. There's always ego involved, ego's not always bad. It's another word like commercialization and people making money. It's not always bad in money. Bad instructors are made how? Same things, same attributes, You could fill in those blanks. I gotta speed it up. Instructors become bad from poor training and student assessment and judgment. Sorry, not that yet. Judgment, that's the big one. Nowhere in the standards. We'll keep reading. Instructor judgment is not covered in the standards. I've talked to great instructors. So ultimately, if there's a student who can't frog kick, who doesn't do this, who doesn't do that, I said, at what point do you say, look, you can come back when I have time, we can make a date, but I'm not giving you a C card. Judgment is not covered in any of the standards. They kind of like dance around it, but they never really address it. But that's fundamental. Judgment becomes compromised by what? Same factors. By can't say no because I need the what? Can't say no because I need dough, got to make that car payment, I'm a cave instructor, got to feed the kids. I mean, is that a bad thing? No, I guess. What is the minimal level of competence that is acceptable for a student to pass? Ed, are you here? Yes. What is it, Ed? Say it. None. But are we going to be able to implement that realistically? No. You'll never be able to implement. There's an answer. You'll never be able to implement that. And at what point in a student's development will they need that skill? They won't know till they're there. They won't know till they're there. They won't know till someone's trying to jerk a regulator out of their mouth, or their buddy's broken a line, or something's gone horribly wrong. And they'll wish, like I said, they'll wish they would have learned that skill. Some students will never progress. They'll never go on. 1 out of every 20 stay in the sport and continue to progress. This is not covered in the standards. It is not covered in the standards. So there's nothing wrong with the standards. There just needs to be 1 or 2. And I know they're constantly, changing them. And there are some people in the CDS right now that I have great faith in that maybe some of this stuff can take place. Currently, this minimum is too low based on overall commercialized instructor judgment. Commercialized instructor judgment. Once again, think of all the people who are training people in caves. And here's examples. No, wrong way. Sorry, dear. So everybody's familiar with this sign. I've designed a new sign for the CDS. I'm hoping they use it. No, not just the CDS. I mean, just the caves. I'm not going to poke fun. If you read it real carefully, they've added some things. Prevent your death. You could be a victim of poor training. And down here, here's a really good one. If your instructor was easy and quick, do not go beyond this point. And if anybody wanted to know, that is what the guy in the cowl looks like with a close-up shot. You just can't see it. It's like when you hold a dollar bill up to a light, there's stuff hidden. So there it is. Anyways, I'll expect to be compensated for that anyways. In the beginning, and I can't get too, let's be honest, for all the incredible things that Chuck Exley implemented, the man, and the only time I get emotional, but the only time I saw Shek, he was teaching a Trimex course. He said, "My name's Chuck Exley. I'm a math teacher and I do a little bit of diving." That's the only time I met him, never introduced myself to him. It was at Edema, and it was when Trimex was becoming, nitrox was still considered dangerous and a voodoo gas, and Shek was trying to bring Trimex to a forefront. On February 6, 1974, pioneering cave diver named Chuck Exley becomes first chairman of the cave diving section of the National Speleological Society. The new section began with members in 10 different states. Anybody want to guess why that might have been? Because right now that's not. Anybody want to guess? I think Chick had a vision. You could talk to John Zummer. CDS bylaws and constitution is too small for you to see, but I will tell you something. This, Article 2 and this are identical. And here's what they say. There's Chick. He looks very happy. His face is a bit chubbier than normal. I think that's because he waited too long before he got in the water. He's all swollen up there. So. What was the original vision of CDS? If you've been on the CDS, the purpose of this organization shall be the same as the NSS. How many people are active cavers up here? Great, I know you are. Shall be the same as the NSS. With additional purpose of organizing NSS members who are interested in cave diving. Once again, fundamentally, in the beginning, it was about training cavers to cross over that threshold into the underwater. So, exploration, right. So that they may better promote the objectives of the NSS, which we could go through the objectives. These objectives include, in this order, still, this is like the Constitution. There's so much controversy over the Constitution. Promotion of conservation, exploration, and the study of underwater caves. If there's one thing that I've learned with the two organizations, with my friends and colleagues that we developed, is we've come to a point where documenting these things is more important than hiding them because they're disappearing. And when they're gone, and the kids and our future generation will go, "Why are you so upset?" Because it'll be our fault. We've got to document, we've got to identify, we've got to show people what these things used to look like and are, because the time for hiding is gone. And there's a way to fix that problem. Education for increased awareness. Once again, education, do you think that means training? I don't think so. Essentially, for increased awareness, safety, and skill in cave diving. Does it say training? Does it actually say training here? No, it doesn't. Currently, the CDS is they're in this genre of commercialized industry. But I'm not going to get negative. This is a positive presentation. Trust me. Let's take a look at the NSS. I was going to bring my email, but we had a lot of problems with it. If you go to the NSS homepage, they have multiple things on ongoing conservation. They have land leases. They have places that people can go and cave. They have other places that people can't go and cave. They keep maps. It's not and it's not all about caves that people train for rappelling? Are people trained for this? It's just about the caves. It's just about the caves. So there's been several times in the past with the NACD and the NSS, they said, Brett, do you know any caves that we could purchase? And I go, yeah, there's this one. There's this one, and there's this one, and the end result is, well, we can't train people there. We really need to purchase a cave that everybody can enjoy and dive. And I'm like, it's about protecting the caves, isn't it? Or is it about protecting the caves that we can train people in? So think about that. Notice a mission statement at the top of the site. I'd like everybody, if you haven't, visit the NSS website, and the very first thing they have across the top is the mission statement. Nature preserves. Go visit the Nature Preserves link on that site. Other activities, all the other activities. And so a lot of people will sit there and go, well, you know, we just don't have as many underwater caves as the NSS has dry caves. And the CDS is not originally, the CDS was not originally designed for its current purpose. Does anybody disagree? Does anybody disagree? To say, thank you, okay. A system is designed to get the results it achieves. Let's go back to degradation of training. A system is designed to get the results it receives. We have bad training because this is the way the system was designed. It's like I said, we did not design this system for accountability. So how can we expect it? So what we're getting is what we deserve. Does anybody disagree? What we're getting is what we deserve. A system is designed to get the results it achieves. We're getting what we designed the system to be. Oh, there's that sign again, sorry. Anybody can see this? Can you see that? That's a fox guarding the hen house. See, the fox is all dressed up in an outfit and the chickens are back there going, brrr. He's got a key in the door. Because I've heard, that term was thrown at me a lot. That's like the fox guarding the hen house. And people who are involved with the CDS, long-time guys will go, well, that's easy for you to say because, you know, we just don't have people showing up and there just aren't people getting here for these positions. But the reason the people aren't here and signing up for these board positions is because the system is designed to get the results it achieves. Nobody wants to be a part of this board in the extracurricular events outside of training of this organization because they haven't been presented in such a way that makes this. I see a CDS where this auditorium, there'll be people in the hallways. It can happen, especially now because the CDS is on the precipice of a very exciting time, even though we're talking about negative things, and I'll get to that in just a second. So the fox has been guarding the hen house much too long. Instructors deserve the accreditation of the CDS. The CDS is foundational. And that's what instructors truly want. There's not an instructor who's instructing who can't do it under TDI, INTD, NAUI, but what they do want is the accreditation. They want their carte blanche, if you've heard that word, of the CDS, and they deserve it. Most instructors deserve it, and we know, and I know how we can do that. Reasons not to change the CDS, and there was only one I could think of, instructor income, but once again, I can't think of any instructor who has a CDS instructorship who couldn't go to any of these other organizations and do a crossover for no money whatsoever. So, once again, the CDS should be and could be so much more than they currently are now. And here's the key word. Here we go. This is what CDS needs. Everybody, whoops, back up. Everybody familiar with this word? How many people work where there's construction? How many people work? Ed is a pilot. Ed, after you've been a pilot for so many years, what do you have to get?
Annual flight review.
Annual flight review. So Ed doesn't fly his plane into an orphanage. Makes good sense, right? I mean, I run a high-rise building services company. I've got guys jumping off of skyscrapers and scaffolds and all the time. What kills me with accreditation, though, is when some guy comes in who's never been on a Bolshin's chair, who's never been over the side of a high-rise tower, and he's just reading out of a book, and he goes, okay, everybody, we're going to... And that's not true accreditation to me. There just has a company. So if you're going to have accreditation, you have to have real accreditation. Medical industry has accreditation. Law enforcement has accreditation, even though you wouldn't think so, seeing the weight of some of the police officers I've seen in Tampa. I'm like, dude, you don't got to rob that store with a gun. All you got to do is be able to run real fast. It'll be just fun. Everyone, laughing means agreeing. But anyways, accreditation. How do you get accreditation? We're talking, see, we're not saying accountability, but you get accountability through what? Accreditation. There you go. Accreditation instructors can still have affiliation through the proper accreditation. They can still have it. Commercial industry will want to accept accreditation from a foundation, well-established organization like the NSS CDS. The problem is if Joe Bob just makes an accreditation association, the people in Europe and the people all over are going to go, man, we'll just make our own accreditation organization and we'll be fine. But the CDS is fundamental. They started this. They started it, but now they're just a part of it, like we talked about Patty now they're just a part of it. What they need to do is they need to go back to where they were. Create training ethics code of conduct. Now here's the tough part. Create training ethics code of conduct that is above contempt and will assure that instructor judgment cannot be compromised. That is what an accreditation. And by the way, you can take accreditation away from somebody. You can't stop somebody from being an instructor unless they really mess up bad. I mean, really mess up bad. But they can lose accreditation. They can lose that affiliation and stuff like that. And I believe the NSS CDS has that staying power. They do. Okay. Independent, third party, independent, whatever, initial bi-yearly instructor quality assessment. It has to be done, and it can't be done by Bubba's best friend. If he shows up to the dive site and he's so impaired he can't do this, and the instructor can't even do a scissor kick, then the instructor doesn't lose his instruction. He just shouldn't be accredited. Find specific instructors who want to exemplify the goals and ideals of the reorganized NSS CDS. It's tough. They're all going to think they deserve it. It's going to be a tough thing, but the CDS has always enjoyed tough things. I don't think, I don't read the online forums, but I think they can handle it. Their accreditation will set them apart. Read it again. Their accreditation will set them apart from commercial industry instructors who just want to hand out a C card. There's always going to be instructors that just got to make money. They just got to hand out those C cards. They don't care if Sue or Bob or Joe die. They just got to make that money. But accreditation will set them apart. Some of them will go, I don't need that accreditation. But I'll tell you, when people go to get CAVE certified, they look. I've talked to some instructors who do this kind of stuff. They're booked well into the next year because people want to know that they have that kind of training. Yes, there's going to be people who don't, but those aren't the kind of people we want to attract because, all right, set the bar high as most individuals, instructors, students want to be considered the best. Pre and post-instruction surveys assess student competency. The CDS could have a whole structure of, the student. I'm interested in getting training. I haven't been in the water. I haven't been in the water for 3 years. Blah 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 blah. We suggest that you go get in the water and do some dives and make sure that you're whatever. So there's just tons of things. Post-student certification mentoring programs, real mentoring programs, and suggested sites that match the student level. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. Accreditation's real, and once again, even though the CDS is a non-for-profit, it's a profitable thing. It's a profitable thing. And here's what the best part is. A better CDS for everyone, model yourself after the NSS like you're supposed to be doing. And that doesn't play on anybody who's a part of this organization, has been a part of it. This isn't a mudslinging thing. It's in your bylaw. It's the second thing in your Constitution. Just do what it says. This is something that's been going on, and like I said, there's some good fundamental people involved with the CDS that could make this happen. Just model yourself at the NSS like you're supposed to be doing. The CDS should make other agencies accountable through accreditation instead of focusing on certification. Protect all underwater caves. Examples: awareness through data. Karsten, I can't show it right now. I'll keep moving. I'm going to go. Purchase cave sites, even side mount, low-vis sites. Purchase these things. They're cave environments. I mean, the greatest thing about Harvey's the other day is there were isopods, amphipods. I mean, there were crayfish so big in there they looked like lobsters. Isn't that worth conserving? If you've never done Harvey's and you never will, eventually at some time, it's a part of the matrix of this part of our aquifer. It's worth protecting. That's what the CDS should be about. It's not all about commercialization. Support the overall membership with mentoring, individual site conservation programs, advanced techniques and equipment, mapping, exploration, grotto creation. This is the big thing. I believe this is what Scheck wanted originally. That's why there were people in how many different states? 10. There's caves in Texas, there's caves in Missouri, there are caves in Tennessee. The CDS was designed to be the first of many grottos, which is what the NSS is made up of, grottos. And the grottos exchange information, and the grottos protect their resources, and the grottos do that. That's what the CDS should start becoming, grottos. Here's some examples of limited resources, but it's a narrow thing. It's limited because guys like me and a bunch of people I see in the audience don't tell you guys about a lot of the other caves. Don't you feel pissed off? I felt pissed off when I was you. Wow, I never knew about that cave. That sucks, that sucks, that sucks. That time has come and gone, because guess what? Everybody's getting side mount training. Everybody owns a boat. The reality is our list should be as long as the NSS list, shouldn't it? I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds of diveable caves here in Florida, if you have the right way to get them. And they need to be documented. Here's a good example. There's a cave directly downstream from Jenny that has more line in it than Jenny. It's called Track 1. It has 5 different openings and 56,000 feet of underwater cave. Is anybody familiar with that cave? They should be. They should be. It becomes very diveable at times. It's high flow. It's deep. It's an advanced cave. But it should be mapped. It should be documented. It should be a part of the NSS CDS Grottos database, available for all of you to see. Oh, by the way, in between there and Jenny and everywhere else, there's Labatt's Blue, there's Cornerstone Cave. The list goes on and on. I could sit here and tell you guys about caves all day long. This is what the NSS CDS should become. It should become the next grotto. I'll guarantee you this auditorium will be full of people. It's going to happen. There was a time when side mounting, I mean, I enjoyed side mounting when we were, way back in the day. It allowed me to go to so many different places up and down the Swanee. But everybody's doing it now. Does anybody disagree whether or not they're doing it poorly or good, But, you look at these, and most Europeans come over to the United States, and these are the caves they think about, minus Morgan's. But once again, I did some advanced by depth and stuff. There's so many more. There's so many more. And some of them become very diveable when the weather gets better. But I'll tell you what, the Europeans, they don't care if there's 20 foot of visibility. They come over here and they're like, woo! They love it. The CDS could be so much more if we could just take a deep breath, give the instructors what they want, give the CDS something brand new to grab onto, accreditation. The iron's hot. You know why? The iron's hot for change, and building an accreditation organization versus a training organization is going to be fought by tooth and nail. But the instructors have to understand, accreditation and affiliation isn't going to change anything, okay? But I promise you, this is a good business plan for the CDS. There's going to be more money changing. Shops can still be affiliated. People can still donate. There'll be more sites that could be purchased, things that could be done. The problem is if we go all the way back to this, scroll back. A system is designed to get the results it achieves. Are we going anywhere? Eventually we'll spiral and go down the drain. We're not going anywhere. It's time to be reborn as an organization, because all we're doing now is we're in the pack. We're part of the pack, and the pack keeps getting bigger and bigger, and there's no accountability. We need accreditation, and we need a fundamental, holistic organization to lead the way. This isn't the presentation you thought it was going to be, is it? I'm almost done for us. Last one. Ongoing real conservation. Ongoing log observations. People call in. What can we do? Every year there should be video logged. How many people dove Hill 400 when it was brown? Anybody? I know you did. Anybody? When I first started cave diving, Hill 400 was brown. What color is it now? Will anybody remember what color it was? We're in a time and a place where technology allows us to document these caves in their present condition, because in 20 years when our grandchildren dive them, they won't be the caves you dove. There won't be splendid clay banks. There won't be things. Conservation is also documentation, even if the documentation speaks poorly. 1 ding equals 10,000. I ding. My fins hit Garthite formations. I would stand up here and just be the biggest hypocrite if I didn't tell you that I've made messes. I really have. I could even be a bigger hypocrite and go, in the name of exploration, I'll break. Look, there's a tiny room I'll never go to again. Anyways. Yearly video logs, yearly fauna counts. The CDS owns Wayne's World. It's an incredible cave. It's a dangerous cave, but it's got 40 foot of visibility right now. Somebody had a sinkhole right next to it. They backed 3 dump trucks of grout, and the cave is dead. There's no crayfish, there's no isopods, there's no amphipods. And once again, I'm not slinging mud. Where was the CDS? If the CDS is what it should be, they'd have been down there fighting for the piece of property they own tooth and nail. And working with the local state governments so they could realize karst topography and the difference that every sinkhole should be filled in with grout. There should be a board designed just to do that. Sinkholes are a big thing right now. Yearly fauna counts, it's gone. Specific morphology awareness, these are just huge programs that people who may not want to explore and may not want to come to Florida could be involved in these programs. The mapping. There's so many places that need to be mapped and documented. If any of you have ever seen the reports that we do at Karst, they're great. They're great reports. They're a timestamp. At this moment in time, this is what happened. This is what the cave looked like. I see kids standing over a spring that's green and putrid with lingvia and going, wow, that's pretty. And the old guys sitting there going, yeah, it used to look like Stoley's vodka when I was a kid. No one's going to care till you're dead and gone, so we need to make a moment in time. We need to have a stamp. Mapping systems that are less blue are not available. Once again, the track system, it's dangerous, but it needs to be documented. I was told Wes has this or Wes had that and stuff, but there's so many things. One ceiling ding or shroud hole equals 10,000. The masses are coming, they're coming. Our resources are limited. We have limited resources here, Purchasing caves, once again, we've done that, and yada yada. And that's it. Change comes slowly. Like I always tell my kids after I give them a talk, I go, you're going to leave this room and you're not going to think anything changed, but I said it takes time. But from a business aspect, I think now is the time for the CDS to do this. Instead of being grouped and herded with all these other organizations and caught up in the bin to make money for instruction, I know that the other agencies around the world will rally to the accreditation and what the CDS could become. And the instructors can still be affiliated, they can still train, they can still have shops, and things need to change. That's all. Thank you.